Well, here we were at another event. It was the Moto Trail Aventure ride. So we met at the Press Cafe on the side of the autoroute north of Montreal. A pretty wide selection of bikes. The big 1200 Adventures, KLRs, 640 Adventures, Suzuki DRs, you name it, it was there. Chris was obviously optimistic since he brought his Spot Messenger.
See that spot, Chris?
The one that's hiding in here?
Oh, is it working?
I don't know. I'm going to find out when I get home.
And of course, the old HP2 always draws a crowd. Then we had a meeting. There was kind of an overall briefing with everybody. It was a pretty fair-sized crowd. Young, old, male, female, you name it. Everybody seemed to be there. And then we broke up into basic, intermediate, advanced, and we had our own little advanced rider meeting. I'm not quite sure why I was in that group. And then it was time to put up or shut up, so we mounted up and off we went. The advanced group was kind of into two pack sections. The first section was mainly smaller bikes, and then in our section was the larger bikes. So we did a little bit of a road ride, and then we got to the outskirts of town where there was a housing community being built, and this is where we would actually get on the trail. And we were kind of told to keep it down a bit because we were driving kind of through people's backyards here. And off we went. And so far, this stuff didn't look too scary. Kind of the kind of thing I'm used to doing with the rest of the guys on the weekend. But then we got into some real mucky stuff, and this was just slippery, clingy, boggy mud, the kind of thing where just trying to get started, you would spin the tire and you were stuck, especially in the F800 with the low ground clearance. It's always nice when you're on the 800 and you see guys up ahead on 650s and 400s getting stuck. You pretty much know what's coming up. And there we see, digging in, just trying to get rolling. But everybody, we didn't know any of these guys, but everybody jumped in, everybody lent a hand, and we kept pushing forward. Here we see Chris helping out a guy on the new generation KLR. The first group that had gone through ahead of us had really churned this thing up. They were on smaller bikes, and they just spun up this trench. And there really wasn't any bypass. It was just debris and logs and branches on either side. There he goes. And there I am, going, this is going to be nasty. You couldn't get up any speed to get any momentum, and on the 800, if you want to get through stuff, you need momentum. This was just paddling, pushing, slogging, and the stuff actually smelled too. This was actually a hydro line that had just recently been clear cut. And there's Chris taking a breather. And then the spin fest continued. Now, you don't really get a sense of it here, but I mean, we've been on this little 200 or 300 meters of trail now for probably well over a half an hour. And stuck again. This is when the other guys are going, holy crap, this thing's heavy. Luckily, the luggage racks and the Adventure Spec crash bars gives people lots of places to grab on and pull.
Hold on.
But there was always plenty of people willing to lend a hand. And one thing with the 800, every time someone would come and try to help you, they were just blown away by how heavy this thing was compared to a real dirt bike. It helps too if the rider weighs, 250 pounds with all his gear on too. Then it was just try to keep up some momentum Now you hear that clicking. That's the first time I've ever heard that. That was my chain. Here's Chris is coming out of the mud, and this is when I decided to pull out the wheel. I saw some of the guys on the smaller bikes were loosening their chains because I had so much mud packed around my sprocket. My chain was really tight. You can still hear it clicking here.
My chain's making incredibly bad noises.
Then it looked like we were going to be okay. We kind of opened up into a more well-established trail network, but it was just this crazy, clingy mud. And even trying to drive through the grass, like you can see people have tried to bypass to the left here, you just sunk in. So now I'm stuck again.
My chain, man. Something bad is happening.
Something's clicking. Maybe it's
And
stuck
what's
in
really
the
fun
guide
when
or
you're
something.
sitting there is when a guy on a little bike chugs his way through.
Hold on.
I don't know, man, but I've never heard. Shit up there.
We could see there was just dirt packed between the chain and the sprocket. Even though the chain had been loosened. So this mud was like particularly clingy. Yeah, that does not sound healthy. At this point, we weren't, I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be able to continue with the ride. I just wanted to get back to civilization, see if I could fix the bike. Then we came to our next little obstacle. This is our leader, and I'm sorry I can't remember his name. And a lot of guys had gone through, and it was all chewed up. And then here you can see, on the right there, you see Chris
Can we go up that left
making an
side?
attempt. And yeah, it was pretty sloggy. There was really no way to bypass this thing. This is one of those things where not having a chain is kind of nice on the old HP2 with that sealed final drive.
Yeah. Everywhere. Yeah. That.
And with a little help from his friends, Chris managed to get going again. And of course, in the process of getting unstuck, he sprayed the poor guy, helping him pretty good from head to toe with muck.
I need to shampoo now. Sorry about that. No, it's okay. It's part of the game.
So I decided to do a little foot reconnaissance here to see if there was going to be any way through, but there didn't seem to be a magic solution.
Yeah,
So it
right
looked
through the
like
middle of the trench.
right through the middle. And once again, the beautiful Adventure Spec crash bars make for excellent hand holds for pulling the old 800 out of the mud. Thanks, guys. And that chain sounds, I don't even like listening to it. Yeah, the 800, once that E09 in the back packed up, just had no traction. Out of the way, buddy. Here I just decided I'm going for it.
Woo!
And even the KTM boys were having some trouble. Although their bikes did it with a lot nicer sound. And once again, everybody jumped in, push, pull. No, we hadn't gone very far at this point. We're talking like probably a kilometer, and it's been, I don't know, an hour or so already. But if you're going to be stuck, you might as well be stuck on a V-twin with a nice set of acro pipes. And here comes Chris. Helps to have long legs if you want to paddle an HP2. Here he decided to break right and do some bushwhacking. But even off the trail in the grass, you know, you didn't have much traction. And then it was trying to rinse some of the mud out from underneath my sprocket and chain. Managed to get it pretty clean, but it was still making that clicking noise. Then the trail opened up, and it actually was kind of rocky, but it was nice. The chain wouldn't make any noise unless I had put down a little bit of power. Then it was back to the muck. And then at some point we had to get off this right-hand side, get back onto the trail. And there was a pretty sloppy looking ditch to get through. So I made the decision that I was just going to keep to the right here and try to get back onto the trail a little farther ahead. And it all went swimmingly well till I came up here to this big rock, and as I was trying to climb it, the moss just ripped right off. And luckily, Chris got another view of that same fall. Here I go. There's a very nice dismount coming up here. And once again, it's nice to have friends when the handlebars are lower than the wheels and you gotta lift up that 800.
Ma méthode de voile, elle marche pas. La feeling méthode. All good, nothing broken.
And off we went. One more little stream crossing to do here, not as bad. I was able to keep the momentum up and get through there. Here we see Chris at the same one. He decided to go right. Chewed his way through. Once again, jerking around with my rear wheel. The mud was mainly gone, and I couldn't seem to find a frozen link. And then off we went. There were still a few little mucky sections up ahead, but nothing too crazy.
Whoa! No, my chain, something's really not happening.
No, it's not happy, eh?
And it's when I give it gas, I feel like do. I don't know, but I'm not sure, but I'd like to stay to the right. Okay.
And Chris decided to make his own route. That looked not all that promising. So I decided just to ram right through the middle. And then I hit a rock, and once again, that's all she wrote. And with a little help from my friends, once again I got going. I saw this little puddle, and I, decided to try to de-muck as much as I could the old chain.
Well, lube doesn't need lube.
I would turn out to be wrong about that. As we continued, now it's been 2 hours. Maybe we've gone 2 kilometers. I don't know, not very far. Although the GPS was showing that we should be coming out onto an actual road shortly. And man, I was very happy to see terra firma. And I think Chris too was pretty happy to see that actual road up ahead.
Sounded like it was getting better there, but maybe.
Anyways, we did a quick pit stop for gas, and I was thinking of turning back because of my chain problem, but instead Chris ran in to go see if they had any sort of WD-40.
WD, anything they got.
And
They don't have spray, yeah.
out came the tools and hosed down the old chain, and then everything seemed fine after that. So tightened up the chain again back to normal spec, and off we went. So we had to do a little road liaison section here, a little bit of gravel, and then we started down a pretty decent, nice little trail. And it was mucky, but it was passable. And then we started coming up to some small, short little water holes, but they were all right. We had a little meet up to wait for the tail end Charlies to catch up. It was really, this is end of April, and it was a beautiful day. It was actually warmed up, and it was quite nice. Still a little bit of snow here and there in the shadows. And then it was back onto the road. Now you can see it on my right. There's a huge sand pit, and there was actually supposed to be 2 sand pits on the morning section of the ride, but we spent so much time being stuck in the hydro line that sadly we had to bypass it. And what's even worse is that since this ride took place, both sand pits are now off limits to off-road vehicles. We spoke to the owner of one of the sand pits, and it was just noise. Guys going in there with ATVs and dirt bikes with loud pipes. So once again, I don't know if loud pipes saves lives, but it certainly gets you kicked off of the trail system. Then it was back onto a nice little trail, and this one we were told would have some pretty decent uphill sections and some pretty decent little downhill sections. Now this is the kind of stuff that's a little more suited to big bikes, and of course you never know who you're going to meet on the trail, so we try to keep our speed semi-reasonable. We had another little wait for the rest of the guys to catch up. And then off we went. We'd also been told there'd be quite a few little water crossings, puddles kind of coming up. Oh, and there our illustrious leader goes down on the KTM.
That's some stinky mud.
Now, I don't know what we were riding through, but it smelled bad. Then we got to the watery section. Of course, Chris and I are no stranger to water. But even in these watery sections, the traction in the bottom was pretty decent. And then once again, we were out onto some nice gravel roads. Waited for the rest of the crew to catch up. Then we got into some more high-speed graded gravel roads. We had a quick stop for gas on the bikes that had more limited range. The 800, you know, I didn't need really to put any gas in at this point. We hadn't really done much mileage. And then we arrived at the municipal park in Boileau, and that's where we had lunch. We were the last group to arrive, and lunch was actually sponsored by Moto International, which is the local Montreal BMW dealer, which was nice of them. And the afternoon ride was not supposed to be quite as technical. It was mainly roads. So at this point, Chris and I decided we were just going to head off. It was a beautiful day and just do our own thing. Now, one thing I think people should consider is that groups like Moto Trail Aventure and the Fédération Québécoise des Motos en Route, the Quebec Off-Road Motorcycle Association, these are the groups that are doing all the lobbying to keep trails open, and these are the guys who were negotiating with the ATV clubs and the municipalities to allow us to use those trails and to have access to that land. So even if you don't plan on going on any of these group rides, it's not a bad idea to throw a few dollars their way. Certainly if you go with the Fédération Québec des Motos en Route guys, you can actually get a sticker for your bike. I think it's around $80, and that gives you access to several ATV clubs trail networks up and around Montreal, and a lot of them farther north. There's also available now for download GPS tracks and maps for all of the 4,000 plus kilometers that are available to you if you join that association. So I'll throw up those websites, and if you want to be able to go ride off-road in Quebec, you might as well support these guys. Anyways, that ended another little Awesome Players Off-Road Motorcycle Club adventure. After all the pushing and slogging and mud and chain problems and everything else, at one point we did come up behind a couple of cruisers, and I still don't think they were having as much fun as we were.